I wrote something, actually wrote it all out so that I could read this to you. So let's get it. With the astounding rise of UFO, drone, alien, disclosure sightings and topics of everybody talking about it, and the amount of information that I have observed recently, I am really felt called to express some of my own personal viewpoints and experiences on the topic. First off, I have been communicating with deceased ancestors all my life. My maternal grandmother passed away when my mother was 7 months pregnant with me. Then her husband, my maternal grandfather, passed away only a year later. I, from a very young age, became aware that I had abilities that my family did not understand. I was different, and it was because of the I was different, but because of the lack of esoteric knowledge and wisdom in my home, I was taught that the things that I was seeing, hearing, experiencing were just part of my imagination. And I was taught to intellectualize these things instead. Okay, here's a message. Fast forward, my paternal grandmother, my father's grandmother, was the only grandparent that I was fortunate enough to get to know on a deep and personal level. I had a very good relationship with her until she passed away whenever I was 8 years old. And this was the first time that I began to question the bigger questions of life to the adults around me, such as why are we here, where do we come from, all those kinds of things. Now, I also grew up in church, being dragged to church. And I used to ask, like my Sunday school teacher and stuff, questions that they couldn't ever answer for me. If you've ever been one of those kids, you know what I'm talking about. It's just, I asked questions that nobody else either didn't have the guts to ask, or nobody thought about the same questions that I had. I started to ask my parents very deep questions, especially my father, because there was never a question that he didn't have a logical answer to. And he could always help me. He could always explain things to me to where I could understand them. Fast forward to 18 to 21 years old. I had a major identity crisis. Everything around me felt fake, ingenuine, and shallow. I started experimenting with any drug I could get my hands on. 21, I got pregnant and had my daughter. And in 2012, 2013, I found psychedelics. And a group of oddball friends who questioned everything just like I did. We all asked each other all of these questions, and we all sat around on psychedelics having these questions and having these experiences. Then one experience, I have a video on it too. One experience, I experienced a crash course of spiritual enlightenment and awakening, because under one of these experiences, we did a Kundalini meditation. And then after it was a Kundalini awakening meditation, and I actually physically remember seeing the energy move between each chakra and each channel. And I experienced a true Kundalini awakening. And I'm not sure how the other people experienced this, because I've talked to them about this, but none of them had the same experience that I did. They had their own experience, but mine was so, y'all. I had my first vision as a Heyoka empath. I didn't know what a Heyoka empath was at the time, but I was starting to get those universal downloads from being a Heyoka empath and showing. I remember being with ancestors and sitting with them, and it was like I was having a crash course of old esoteric knowledge, ancient knowledge, shaman knowledge. I remember being in this place for a very long time, and I remember coming back down through lightning. I called them light beings, they actually put my soul inside the lightning, and then the lightning struck me back down into my body. That's the only way I know how to explain it. But some of these things I haven't told anybody. And if you look in my human design, I have, it's the channel 10 to 20, and it is the channel of awakening. It is the channel of higher consciousness, the channel of awakening in my human design. So there's that too. But when I experienced this, imagine the process of completely resetting your phone or your computer. But instead of it returning to plain factory reset settings, it decides it wants to download all the information from Google and the cloud. And my brain was the phone or the computer. So if anyone has ever experienced true enlightenment, that moment of true enlightenment where you open up all of your chakras and you have that universal, it's an ego death. It is straight up ego death. It is extremely euphoric whenever you are experiencing it. Extremely euphoric. It fills up every single piece of who you are. Every single piece. But that's a lot of information, and it completely changed my personality and my perception of reality and non-reality. And it has taken me until 2023 to 2024 to 2025 to realize exactly what happened to me. But with all of that being said, the last year of my father's life, I remember specifically us having a conversation. We were discussing God, the meaning of life, you guessed it, aliens. And aliens and time travel was probably two of his favorite subjects that we used to mentally bounce back and forth between each other whenever I got older. But I remember having this conversation. We had the same conversation many years over time, but this time was different. He told me that he believed that God was indeed an alien, because anything alien is not of this planet and creator source. But what I understand, and what most of you understand on my channel, is that creator source is inside as well as outside of us. But he was old school, so he didn't quite grasp that. He does now, but anyway, he believed that indeed God was an alien, and that so were all the other angels, demons, deities, entities, anything, that it was technically alien, because it was not something that we are used to seeing on this plane of existence. And that was his way of his mind grasping and comprehending the unknown when it comes to the topic of spirituality and aliens and everything like that, because it really is all pieces of the same puzzle. By the way, my dad is that ancestor that he calls all the shots, and everything's got to go through him. So, along with all the other ancestors that I've been connecting with through my indigenous roots. I don't look it, but I have very strong indigenous roots. And I remember my dad always telling me that I was a spitting image of my grandmother, his mom, the one that passed away whenever I was 8 years old. I'll let you guys in a little secret. At her funeral, I was the only one that could see her. I remember telling my dad that, and it kind of freaked him out. Anyways, I love you guys. If you have any questions on any of this kind of subject, hit me up.